announcement we don't usually make to turn off your cell phones. We should add that, huh? Then we get to hear all those cute little songs. Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
So this morning, I am delighted to be speaking on the mystic poets of Sufism as part of our world religion series. And I'm going to especially focus on Rumi and Hafiz. How many people have read Rumi and Hafiz? Some of you. Yeah. Well, let me begin then with a poem from Hafiz called My Brilliant Image. One day the sun admitted, I am just a shadow. I wish I could show you the infinite incandescence that has cast my brilliant image. I wish I could show you when you are lonely and in darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. I wish I could show you when you're lonely, when you're in darkness. I wish I could show you the astonishing light of your own being. You know, we all have moments where we feel the light in us shining. I hope we do. I hope we do. I hope we all have moments, many moments, most moments, where we feel the light in us shining. And when we feel the love in us flowing, unimpeded, with that open-heartedness. And I know that we also have moments where we feel lonely, and we do feel in darkness. And yesterday, you know, because I feel so connected to the one that we are, you know, I think we had kind of a collective moment of feeling darkness, you know, and just feeling a wound, kind of a collective wound in our heart, the way that hatred is wounding, you know. And the hatred and violence that we see, you know, expressed in the world, sometimes it just feels too harsh, doesn't it? You know, and we want to know, where is that place where there is just love, and there is kindness, and there is goodness, and there is compassion, and there is forgiveness, and there is light. There is home. I can feel like I'm home. I'm at home in that safe place of comfort and beauty and love. Well, Hafiz in this poem, you know, he's really being the voice, he's channeling the voice of the Creator, he's channeling the voice of love, and he's saying, you know, there is this light within your own being. He said it in the daily words, it's so perfect. You know, there is this divine light in our own being, and we need to turn to that, and we need to let it flood us with warmth, and flood us with comfort, and let go of the reflections of unconsciousness, and let go of that fear that comes up, and let go of believing in the darkness. The darkness is not, it's not real, it's a shadow, it's a shadow. And it is unconsciousness that is wanting to be enlightened. It is unconsciousness waiting to be enlightened. And how do we enlighten it? With what? Love. Yes. Yeah, you've heard that saying from Jesus, Martin Luther King Jr. It is only through love that we will dissolve hatred. Hatred cannot dissolve hatred, right? We've heard that, we know that. So, I love Hafiz. I love his poetry because I feel like I know him. I know him from reading his poetry. I could just imagine meeting him. And I would just imagine this man that is just so big and burly and just so full of light and lightheartedness and full of sparkly eyes and full of laughter and playful and just in love with life and in love with God. You know, awake to that light, fully awake to that light of his own being. He was born in Persia in 1320, and he is the most beloved poet of Persia. Sufism is a mystical tradition, and it's really all about experiencing divine love. It's similar to the tradition in Hinduism I spoke of, the Bhakti tradition, where we just love God. It's all about loving God. And through that love becoming more God-like, more love-like, right? So let me share one of my most favorite of all Hafiz's poems. It's just really speaks to me, especially in this week that we've had. It's called, I Know the Way You Can Get. I know the way you can get when you have not had a drink of love. Your face hardens, your sweet muscles cramp. Children become concerned about a strange look that appears in your eyes, which even begins to worry your own mirror and nose. Squirrels and birds sense your sadness and call an important conference in a tall tree. They decide which secret code to chant to help your mind and soul. Even angels fear that brand of madness that arrays itself against the world and throws sharp stones and spears into the innocent and into oneself. Oh, I know the way you can get if you have not been drinking love. You might rip apart every sentence your friends and teachers say, looking for hidden clauses. You might weigh every word on a scale like a dead fish. You might pull out a ruler to measure from every angle in your darkness the beautiful dimension of a heart you once trusted. I know the way you can get if you have not had a drink from love's hands. That is why the great ones speak of the vital need to keep remembering God. Keep remembering God so you will come to know and see Him as being so playful and just wanting to help. That is why Hafiz says, bring your cup near me, for I am a sweet old vagabond with an infinite leaking barrel of light and laughter and truth that the beloved is tied to my back. Dear one, indeed, bring your heart near me. Bring your heart near me, for all I care about is quenching your thirst for freedom. All a sane man can ever care about is giving love.
Wow.
Amen.
All a sane man or woman can ever care about is giving love. You know, he's pleading with us here to recognize when we've walled off our hearts, right? Recognize when our face and heart have hardened, and recognize when we're throwing sharp stones and spears into the innocent and into ourselves. That's such a great line. You know, recognize when we're throwing sharp stones and spears into the innocent and into our own self. And he reminds us how to remedy this madness. How to remedy this madness. He says, the great ones speak of the vital need to keep remembering God. Remembering that she is playful and loving and wanting to help. Just wanting to help. Always there. You know, it's hard for me to imagine that some people have no relationship with Spirit. It's hard for me to imagine it, but it's true. Some people have no connection. They don't feel connected to that God of love, you know. And when I think about that, I mean, it just kind of breaks my heart, you know. I feel so much compassion for that, you know. I just can't even imagine it, you know. It's hard to try to imagine. But that love that we speak of, that God is so available. It's so touchable. It's so there for us if we call. If we call to it, if we ask for it, if we seek it, right? If we want it. And I feel that so much of the anger and hatred going on in this world right now is because of this lack of connection. It's because people are not feeling that presence. They're not feeling that love. And maybe they just don't even know to call to it. You know, maybe they don't know it's available. Maybe they've gotten so hardened or so hurt somewhere along the way that they don't know to call to it, you know? I feel like there is too much ego leading in the world. There's too much ego leading in the world. And the way you know that it's ego leading in the world is there's a bunch of division. There's a bunch of separation. There's a bunch of hatred and anger and fear. Lots of fear, you know? And there's rejecting the other. That's what fear does. Fear's afraid of the unknown. It's afraid of that person who's different. You know? But I'll tell you what, you can sure tell when love is leading, can't you?
Amen.
You can tell when there's love. You can tell when love is the leader because there's harmony, there's unity, there's healing, isn't there?
Amen.
There's kindness, there's compassion, there's empathy, there's goodness, there's joy. Yeah, there's inclusiveness. That's what love is. You know, it's funny how the ego thinks it doesn't need spirit. It's kind of like a fish thinking, oh, I don't need the water. You know? It's just that ridiculous, isn't it? It's that ridiculous. So the mystic poets, they give us a key to connecting with love and with connecting with the Creator. They say, call God's name. You know, say it in your head, say it in your heart, sing it in your songs. You know, say prayers, call God's name. The other most famous Sufi poet is Rumi, besides Hafiz, and he says, remember God so much that you are forgotten. Isn't that beautiful? Remember God so much that you are forgotten. Let the caller and the called disappear. I know Amma used to say, you know, to say I love you is actually not even true because it's separating the I and the you. To say we are one in love, right? So this disappearing, this calling so intensely that we disappear into that. I had this experience this week. It was such a week of intense energies. Oh my goodness, just everywhere. Everywhere I went, everywhere I turned. And I went to Shasta thinking, foolishly, I was going to get away from these intense energies. And my first day I was all blissful, and then the second day I went and saw a really dear friend that I love very much, and they were in such a dark place. They were just absolutely in the worst, just really in a dark place, and really angry, and just really, just I think all their patterns were up, and kind of just spewing negativity. And I went there not expecting that, and so my heart's pretty tender anyway, but it was really open, and oh my goodness, when I left, I just felt sick. I actually felt nauseous. And my heart hurt. I mean, my heart felt kind of wounded. And, I know how to take care of my heart. So I went back to the place I was staying, my other friend's house, and the spare key that we keep outside wasn't there. And it was getting dark. They were going to be home in a few hours. So I walked around the back of the house, and the back of the house is right on the edge of just all this wilderness. It's right on the ravine, and at the bottom of the ravine there's this beautiful creek that goes to a lake. And so I just took a chair out there, and I just sat there way out in the woods, and I had my own little vision quest, and the dark came, and the stars came out, and I just was in so much prayer. And I found myself really praying for non-attachment and love. I was really praying, let me not be attached to people on this earth getting it or not getting it. Let me not be attached to relationships looking a certain way, or people in my circle of friends or family, becoming enlightened or treating me in any particular way. Let me love anyway. Let me love so unconditionally that they can be however they are, and I'm free. So I was praying for that freedom.
Amen.
It's really praying for that freedom so intensely. I mean, with everything I had. And I was praying to the Divine Mother. I really, we all have our names for God. For me, that which we call God is so much love. It's like the mother of all mothers. It's like the mother of love itself and everything that's in creation. So that's what I was praying to. Anyway, my friend finally came home. I was freezing cold. I went in and took a bath, and I went to bed, and I had a dream. I had an amazing dream. And in this dream, this Divine Mother figure was there, and she knew my prayer, she knew my suffering. She said, come here. And I just went to her, and she just held me, and I just cried, and I cried, and I cried, and I let go, and I felt so much grace and transformation, and I woke up. It was so beautiful. It woke me up, and my face was just wet with tears. And I just thought about this dream, all the next day, and I just felt so blessed by grace, and I really just was aware that this divine grace, this divine presence, this divine love is there for us. But we have to call.
Amen.
We have to call for it. We have to want it. We have to yearn. Our heart, in some ways, has to break open, you know, to make us sort of get down on our knees and say, I need help. I need to feel the greater power. I need to feel the greater love. I need to see the greater vision than what I'm seeing right now. So my point is that, and Hafiz, as he says, keep remembering God. Call that name incessantly and be receptive to the loving presence. And, you know, in unity, we allow people their own name for God. You know, we allow people to have their own paths. I love our mission statement because we say that. And I just want to read, Charles Fillmore he has actually a lot of descriptions for God, but this is one I really liked. He describes God as that invisible, intangible, but very real something we call life. God is perfect love, and infinite power. God is not a being, but being itself. I like that. So we may call to Jesus. That may be our path. That may be what makes sense for us. Or we may call to Great Spirit. Or we may call to the Divine Mother. We may call to that I am. Right? But think about it this way. There's about 6,500 languages in use today. So that would mean there's about 6,500 words for water, right? About 6,500 different words for water. Now, if I call it agua, is that how you say it? Instead of water, does that change it? Is it something else other than water? If I call it agua, is it something other than water? What other names for water are there? Do you know any other languages?
H2O.
Good ones! Yes.
In Hip River, water is os.
Os? Oh, wonderful.
H2O.
H2O.
Times two.
Lots of scientists. And Italian is
Aqua.
agua?
Aqua.
Aqua. So you see, it's still water, isn't it? We're calling it a lot of different things, but it's still water. You know, is it really right for me to get angry with you if you don't use my word for water? Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't make sense. And so really, it's the same with God. It's like there are a lot of names for God, you know, and to force other people to use our language that makes sense to us. That's what I want us to transform out of. That's what I want us to grow out of as a society, as a world, you know. Allow people to connect the way that makes sense for them. You know, it's time. So I actually would like to know the word for God that you love, that you relate to. I actually would love to just talk to each one of you personally and know that, because it's a very intimate thing and a precious thing. So if you feel comfortable, would you just say that name? By what name?
Creator.
Great Spirit.
Rama Spirit.
What is that?
Rama.
Rama,
God.
God, Great
Jesus.
Spirit, Jesus,
Father, Mother, God.
Father, Mother, God,
Goddess.
Goddess. She.
The all.
We all. Yes, oneness, beingness. Beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. The more important question is, do you take time to repeat that name? Do you take time to repeat that name? Do you call out from your heart? Do you call that name out from your heart every day? Do you pray that name? Do you sing that name? You sing that name. Another of Hafiz's poem says, keep squeezing drops of sunlight from your prayers and work and music. Keep squeezing drops of sunlight from your prayers and work and music. Calling out the name of God is a prayer. Singing out the name of God is a prayer. And our prayers are like squeezing drops of sunlight into our lives. They lighten the darkness. You know, when I got that news yesterday, I just went to the park and I just walk. I just had to walk. I did walking meditation, and I just prayed, you know, and I just decided, instead of despair, I'm going to be in prayer, okay? There's a little mantra you can take with you today. Instead of despair, I'm going to be in prayer, okay? That sounds like a chant. I think I should write. Now, one more thing about Sufism that is beautiful. There's so much to share, but today I'm kind of focusing more on the mystical poetry. But one of the beautiful practices in Sufism is the practice of whirling. And those that whirl are called Sufi dervishes. Has anyone seen that? Oh, many of you.
Oh my God.
I have never seen that, let alone done it. I would love to
I was
experience.
thinking of it when you played your song. I was seeing William Dervish.
You know, that's what's so strange about how that came. I didn't even realize it, but it's in 6/8. It's like the perfect rhythm
I
for
wanted to do
whirling.
it.
Well, sometime I'm going to try that. But whirling is an active form of meditation. It's one of their active forms of meditation, and the goal is really union with the divine. It's really to reach the source of perfection. And in the practice, they focus on abandoning the ego and personal desires, and then listening to music and focusing on God, and then they spin the body in repetitive circles, which is seen as a symbolic imitation of the planets in the solar system orbiting the sun. And I have seen it. I've not seen it live, but I've seen it, and it looks like that. It's so beautiful. There's something powerful in it. So Sufism is this mystical path to divine love, and it coalesced out of traditional Islam. And both Rumi and Hafiz were steeped in his, that was their background. That was their religious background, and they knew the Quran backwards and forwards. But they both seem to have transcended, that religious background and had a direct awakening of divine love and union with the beloved. You can really feel it in their poetry. Rumi's actual name was Jalal al-Din Muhammad Bahi. And though he was, he was well educated and he was a scholar, he didn't feel like his life really began until he met a spiritual teacher. And his spiritual teacher's name was Shams. You read his poetry where he talks about Shams. He talks about him a lot. His name was Shams Tabriz. And the story goes that Rumi was, I guess fairly young. He was teaching by a fountain, and he had students around him, adoring him. Shams was watching from the back, and Shams walked up and made his way through the crowd and just went up to where Rumi was standing, and he just took that pile of books and he just pushed them right into the water, right into the fountain. And he said, what you've been reading in books, you need to live now. You need to live now. It needs to become real for you, not intellectual. And then Rumi said that, what I had thought of before as God, I met today in a human being. He was just so blown away by the love and the light of Shams. And Shams got Rumi to see poetry and music as spiritual practice, which I can really relate to that. So let me share one of Rumi's most beloved poems. I love this one. Out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When a soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. Ideas, language, even the phrase, each other, doesn't make any sense. Have you heard that one before? Such a beautiful. What's he saying? You tell me.
No separateness.
Out in that field beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, he's saying, stop dividing, stop separating, go beyond the mind. There's this beingness and there's this peace that's beyond the mind. Another beautiful line of his says, the soul has been given its own ears. The soul has been given its own ears to hear things the mind does not understand. Do you know? Do you know what he's saying? The soul's been given its own ears. It understands things that the mind doesn't. Can we hear? That's the question. Can we hear with the ears of the soul? One of my favorite Rumi poems of all, I heard, 20 years ago on the Big Island. I was at a retreat, and this big burly man with this big beard got up, and he did this dance, and he was a storyteller, and he told this poem. I wish I could do it like he did, but I'm just going to read it. This is the beautiful, beautiful poem from Rumi. It says, "Inside this new love, die. Your way begins on the other side. Become the sky. Take an axe to the prison wall. Escape. Walk out like someone suddenly born into color. Do it now. You're covered with thick cloud. Slide up the side. Die and be quiet. Quietness is the sure sign that you've died. Your old life was a frantic running from silence. The sweetness, the speechless, full moon comes out now."
It's beautiful.
So he's not saying literally die. He's saying die to what limits you. It's the way that I died in the forest this week. It's the way that I sat there and I went, take these limitations. Take these attachments. They are making me suffer. Take them from me. I want to be free. I want to love without attachment. I want to love in the purest way. So we can die to old habits. We can die to our old way of being. It's like a shedding of a skin, a snake, right? The snake doesn't mourn from that skin it just shed. You can die to the old ways, old habits, old patterns, old self, and become more free and more open like the sky, right? Become the sky. Become someone suddenly born into color. So, in closing, I hope I've encouraged you to read these incredible poets, these enlightened poets, especially these two, but there are many more, and meditate on these words, because what I feel about mystical poetry is that it really is, it's sort of this language of the soul. It's this language of the soul that we understand from our soul beyond our mind, and it takes us beyond our mind. That's what mystical poetry is really for. So I hope that you will check out Rumi and Hafiz and meditate on their enlightened words, and that it'll awaken in a greater desire for this divine love, and that it'll also awaken a desire for us all to free ourselves from the madness of this world that throws stones and throws spears into the innocent and into oneself. So I'll leave you with one last line from Rumi, and to remember that it is true, all we need is love. All we need is more love. That is the answer, again and again and again. Rumi says, "Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love." You know what I really love? Guess.
Me.
Love. I love love.
And kindness.
I love love. That's what I love the most. That's what I love the most about this world. Let yourself be silently drawn by the strange pull of what you really love. It will not lead you astray. So be it, and so it is. Thank you.
Amen.